I graduated from school in Milledgeville, Georgia, and when I walked out of the school, it was 1940, and what am I going to do with my life? And Hitler was overrunning Europe, and of course the government is starting on a lot of bases and a lot of defense work and all the other things. So I talked to these people about a vocational school, but they've had at that time schools for teaching welding. And I went and I said, the easiest thing to do is be a welder quick and you can make a lot of money. So, but it didn't last very long because while I could have got deferments, I was going to the Navy. And I thought I had worked out a deal with the Navy that I was going to go to the aviation school. I wanted to be a pilot. But I wound up, since I'd been a welder, and they sent me to San Diego to advanced welding school. Then I came back across the country and picked up my ship, a repair ship. And on that repair ship, they had a large number, I think it was over 100 probably, of people who came out of the Brooklyn Naval Shipyard. And if you've been on a ship for as long as we were, you tell every story and you go over it again and again, you know. And on the ship, I'd listen to these guys talk about their unions, and then one of them would say, that's no damn good, it's not as good as mine. And then they'd go all through this, and they'd argue and they'd fuss, and you'd try to straighten them out, and they would tell you, shut up, we'll do this. So I learned a lot about people. When I came home, I wanted to go to law school, and I moved to Macon, Georgia, to go where I could go to Mercer University in the evening on the GI Bill of Rights. And about the first 3 or 4 days there, I was there, and this guy sidled up to me and he says, "You hadn't been to one of our union meetings." I said, "I'm not interested in the union. I want to go to law school." So he said, "Well, you're pretty well liked around here." I said, "You ought to think about that." So I thought about it, and I said, "Well, I'll go to the next meeting." And I go to this meeting, and I had this gray-headed gentleman that was a senior official of the union, and he told all the things about what the rights for you had and everything. And he said, "One of the things, though, you need to take buttons and pin it on, because the company can't fire you for union activity, but if you can't prove you was a union guy, then you got a problem. So if you wear the pin," that's how the pin was. So anyway, I went to the meeting. I wasn't going to wear any pins. I put them in my pocket. The next day, I'm welding, soft soldering, and the supervisor jumped up on this board, and it went up and down, and he says, "You did have a future around here." And I said, "What do you mean I did have a future around here?" He said, "I understand you went to that union meeting last night." I reached in the pocket and I pinned on that union button, and I become a union guy. You know, very few people get it in that same light from that point. And it wasn't a few weeks later that I met the vice president of the union and of the international union. He was a top official. And then he called me back a few days and asked me if I'd go down to Cape Canaveral, where, and I go down to Cape Canaveral, they're having a lot of labor disputes. And so I went down there, and I had a 3-day assignment that I turned into 13 years. President Kennedy enunciated we were going to the moon in this decade in return, and we'd had many, many strikes. So I got involved in trying to put together committees that you didn't have to strike it. We had to work together, and we had to learn new trades and new things that we were doing. So I got appointed on the Missile Site Commission by President Kennedy. And I served there for a while, and then along when Richard Nixon became president, I had worked like heck for Hubert Humphrey, and I believed with all of my heart that we couldn't go on with white supremacy and not equal rights for women or equal rights for people.
Your mother taught you that.
Oh yeah, my mother, she'd come home and she would raise Cain. My father made $4 a month more than she did, and she had to work hard he did, at this hospital. And when Nixon was elected president, George Shultz was elected, became Secretary of Labor. And George Shultz asked Jim Hudson, who's the best labor guy we can get? And Hudson said, I know the right guy. So, and Mr. Hudson just passed away a few weeks ago from this point. So he recommended it, and I came, and that's his history. I love this. I was, of course, at that time, the Labor Department was up at 14th and Constitution Avenue. And I spent nearly 4 years as Assistant Secretary for Labor Management Services. Then I became a Special Assistant to the President, and then I became Director of the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service before I came back to the Department as Secretary of Labor. That I love people, all people. And we have to work hard to figure out how do we work and live together. And it's deep in my heart that I like to bring people together. But I went to a military school, and the military school that I went to, women couldn't go and blacks couldn't go. And I grew up around blacks until I lived in Georgia. And I was deeply concerned about our welfare, especially after the war was over with, as I was going to live in America from that point. And I've always tried to make peace with people. I love people. I don't agree with them a lot of times, but I don't try to be so disagreeable that you can't make friends, you understand? I get people to listen to you and talk to you. And yes, I love mediation. It's nothing as important as when you get two bitter groups together. I'm not going to sit with those so-and-sos, and I'm not going to sit with those so-and-sos. I'm not going to take any pictures, and you're not going to do this, and you're not going to do that. And after 15 or 20 hours, or 2 or 3 days, see them shake hands, we take pictures, they walk away and forget who you are, you understand? They're back buddies again from this point, back to going back. I love peacemaking, and it isn't easy, because in my original things, the biggest problem was when I first came to the department here was how are we going to get blacks into the jobs, and we had a lot of demonstrations and other things, so I had a lot of mediation there. So I have all parts, I have been all parts of mediation. I love it, I enjoy people. We had a bit of cold strike. Ms. Dole asked me to try to mediate the dispute, and we finally got the dispute. It was very hard to get. But in the meantime, there had been a cold strike in the Soviet Union that I had read enough and knew enough that I put up $50,000 of my own money to take a group to Russia. We went to Siberia. We went down in a mine in there, and we formed an organization on partisan economic reform, PEER, the labor movement. And it started a relationship between mine workers to mine workers. Mine workers, anywhere they are, they got the same problems. Any country, any world, any place. And you go down in a coal mine, you go down pretty deep, and you go down and they say, well, I have to tell you, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Mediator, the power went off yesterday and we was down here 4 hours, you understand, or 5 hours or whatever it was. It's pretty difficult. I've known the Department of Labor as well as anyone, and we have a lot of dedicated, conscientious workers working to make life better. And as I say, I've leaned over into mediation more than you ordinarily get into would be as Secretary of Labor, to be honest with you. But the Labor Department has been tremendous in many places. But I've had an interesting, exciting career. And usually you would, I would have liked to still be doing some of it. Age times have changed, but it's been marvelous.